Good evening. This is Just Vine,
And Kanzuki Dynasty.
and today we're going to go over some bot basics. So, basically, we're going to go over how we approach entering a bot, how we approach first contact with a bot, all that good stuff. Just to give people an idea of how to approach using it to your benefit, because you can fight these things and gain no knowledge whatsoever. So we figured to make it accessible, we would need to explain how we approach it and how we gain information out of it. So maybe you all will have a little better luck and understand that it's not really easy for us either in terms of entering it anyway. So to start off, we're going to go through Akuma's, each of his inputs, and show you what we have right now. Some of it's going to change in a segment we'll do later tonight after Texas Showdown pools end. But for now, we're just going to focus on how we approach the bot, while also showing you like what the bot has right now and what we can extrapolate from there. So,
Shall we go through them then?
mm-hmm.
Action 1. Simple demon flip grab. Stop it inside. When you're looping in action, you don't necessarily always get all of it, and it's very easy for it to fall into specific patterns. So it's useful to occasionally poke it if you're going to make sure that it has everything that it should. But in this case, as far as I understand it, at least, this is the majority of this particular pattern. And so, let's look at the second one. So some medium punches, medium kicks, and throws.
And one thing to note in this particular one, so there's a number of reasons why it has what it has in it. But the most important trick here to note is, one, you should generally try to have your bot have a way to throw tech, especially if your style is shifted towards throwing or command throws or anything like that. The other thing to note is that you can hide in your normals if you have something higher than a light move that you want to enter in. You can enter in the light move, like the light punch, for example, with the medium punch, in order to get a quick rise. And you can do the same for kicks to get a back roll. So that way, the bot just has a little more life in it. It's not totally necessary to have it for most bots, but this ups the realism up a little bit. So later on, we'll add a little bit of that possibly to the bot itself. But if you're tinkering around with it, that's just one way you can alter it just a little bit to make things a little harder on you. If you are trying to practice your meaties against the bot for whatever reason or stuff like that.
Of course, this is not something that we had in the action we were showing you to avoid any confusion, but it is something we intend to add to this spot. So action 3 is some firepower. Ground and air. a bit of Tatsu hidden inside. And of course, once the bot is finalized, the inputs will be up on our website 2-mk.org, just like all the rest.
And so, to repeat ourselves a little bit here in the beginning, today we're going over how to approach entering in a bot, how to approach fighting it for the first time, and later on we'll be refining the bot a little bit after Texas Showdown tools in. So right now we're just going over each move individually and showing you what's in it. That way you have the components in your head when we do the more complex analyzing everything happening at once.
And the last action.
So the trick with this particular one is you need to like practice doing the link, otherwise it won't work. So this one isn't that complex, you can see, but there's plenty of opportunities here, especially
Yes, I don't think this is the 5 we wanted. I don't think we exited the program correctly after we did it last time.
oh darn.
So, one important thing to remember whenever you're working with bots is that you should always exit to the main menu once you're done, in order to make sure that things saved correctly.
Could we chase the birds out of the house?
Oh, yes, let me take care of that.
Thanks.
Anyway, let's begin.
But yes, you don't have to like do anything too complex. Just go to the main menu after you finish entering in a bot, so that way you don't lose your work. If you accidentally close out of the application before you do that, you're gonna have a very unhappy day. Which has happened to us before, so that's how we know. So, fixing that for you ahead of time by finding that out.
Anyway.
So, as you can see, most of these are fairly simple actions. This is for a few reasons. One, we didn't want to overwhelm you all with the more complex actions to begin with. And we wanted to show you how we approach inputting this sort of thing. So that way you can just understand that, yes, it's hard. Sometimes it's not too hard, but just keep at it. We know how you feel. So do the show them the link. Show them what's required to do the link.
Forward, heavy punch, light punch.
So you can see the timing on this is not standard for a link because the forward heavy punch is a fairly long move. So it can mess with your input timing a little bit if you're not used to that long of a move. For me, I play in Bison along with Armika, so his combos, since his moves are so long, have a similar issue. So for me, it wasn't that hard. Right now, Kanzuki is entering in this, and all of her characters have really quick moves. So you can see that it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do at first. But this
Not
is...
to mention I'm entering the wrong input some of the times.
Yeah, that's also a tricky bit. Sometimes, like, your mind just kind of confuses itself, like, in between going from your brain to your hand, and you just push all sorts of weird things. That's completely normal. So don't get too discouraged about that.
Here I'm putting in a light kick instead of a light punch at the end. Now see, I wanted to make this hidden move EX, so I'll give myself 1 or 2 more tries at that.
So here's the less obvious thing about inputting a quick rise or a back roll. You can do it so that you can get an EX move out, which should be obvious, but when you're inputting a special move, you can do the same thing as you would with normal moves. So it's another way to hide in inputs for that sort of thing. And if you have like the main move you're doing already as an EX move, it's going to have that in. So non-obvious thought that is obvious when you think about it. An EX move always means that you're going to have a quick rise or a back roll in the bot. That needs a little more fixing.
I can see that.
There. The struggle is real. So... yeah.
That might be it.
I think that's close.
Ah, but I don't think I got the combo this time. I did not. That might be it. Does that look correct? It does look correct. Let's have a look. Getting the combo. Now I can just confirm the hidden move. It can sometimes be difficult to confirm these hidden moves on certain fight lanes like this. Because, well, how do you get to Akuma? There we go. Okay then. Looks perfect.
But yeah, the other nice thing about Akuma's forward heavy punch is because it's so long, it takes up a lot of time. And if you're looking to have a quick rise in there, you don't want it to be too predictable. So especially if you link it to a special move, that even eats up more time, so it makes it even more unpredictable that it's going to come out. Because you can...
For instance, if you look at this one, we have an EX Demon Flip. Those 2 kicks will, in fact, end up, if we don't have the meter on, if he doesn't have the meter for it, the medium kick will win. We'll get a medium Demon Rise. And if he is on the ground at that time, or just happens to land just right, we'll even get a back roll out of it with those 2 kicks. In any case, it looks like we have Akumabot now. So let's take our advice. Are we going to be recording more this session, or should I exit out for the moment?
Go to main menu.
Taking our own advice. We'll go out to the main menu, and then back in. This will result in the training mode saving our settings, and I won't have to input that again. Which, as you can see, can take a little while, even if I've done it once before. Training.
So next, Kanzuki is going to play the bot a little bit and explain how she goes through approaching it. And her general process for that.
Kanzuki Ryu is unparalleled. Shall we begin?
First, let's talk to your
You
bot.
want to?
Because why not?
Yada yada.
So let's turn it on. Although there are many different ways to approach the box, I tend to at least start out by turning everything on for the full configuration. Which, for this spot, is as you see here. All gauges are on normal, except the opponent health gauge, which auto-recovers for the moment. So, let's reset that. Now, my typical approach is to take something is to possibly fight the bot a bit, or possibly just knowing what it's for and what I have trouble with from Akuma, and use that to pick one or two things that I want to try to fix, deal with, or figure out. In my case, I have trouble with the Demon Flip Throw. If you're playing Akuma and you happen to see Ring Siren in your match, do that all day long and you'll perfect me twice in a row. So, I have a tendency to, at least in the beginning, turn on everything and see how things go. Now, I have fought this bot before, a little bit as Karin, and a little bit as Ibuki. Probably only about a half an hour each. And my demons with the demon, other than keeping up on basic punishes perhaps, or whatever, are that Demon Flip Throw, and something I newly discovered is a ground pound thing, which I suppose I have to give him B-meter so he can actually do. Ouch. And so my goal, when I'm going about this, would be to try to fight the bot, and attempt to come up with ways to, when he does his demon flips, for instance, see what I can do with that. Or similar things, as opposed to just getting thrown. Now the reason for this approach, at least on my part, is I feel personally that if I try to focus on one or two things with the bot using different settings, like only turning on certain actions or similar, I will get too comfortable. I will get into a rut of my own, and one that doesn't necessarily apply to real gameplay. But if I have all of the actions on, and he's doing a lot of varied things, he's going to mix me up eventually, if I try to get into any one thing too much. So, it's not going to help if he doesn't use his meter before I give it to him. However, because one of the things I want to practice involves him being in V, I'm going to give him his V gauge.
Part of the reason why she turned off his meter is because this specific bot is designed to be a little different between when he has meter and when he doesn't. Most of our bots don't do this. But for Akuma specifically, there's just so many differences between when he does have meter and when he doesn't, that in order to train the adaptability part of this bot, you really do need to have it off. There's points where I personally will have him keep it on all the way just to figure out how to deal with that half of it. But when I'm actually being serious and trying to play the mini game that we set up, I need to turn it off.
So as we see there, Light Punch anti-air is not a thing against Demon Flip. fact, I'll turn the inputs on so you can see at least what I'm doing. But that's one of the first things that I would have tried, and something I have tried against online Akumas. So you just see it again here, in my sorting through what my options are. And so that didn't work. But I don't know if that was necessarily the same action. My other demon, actually, the one I was trying to show you, is that little ground pound of his. That one right there. It's actually plus. And I really don't expect that. So I try to punish it habitually every time. As such, one of the goals that I can have for myself with this bot is to adjust how I deal with that, make sure I don't punish it, and obviously let the bot punish me for punishing it, which will help retrain my muscle memory. So between that and Demon Flip, and just occasionally trying to punish a few things, I have enough to do that I have keeping my mind busy. I have little enough to do that I can focus on each of maybe 2 or 3 things. And I can just try things and figure out what my options are, without getting overly complacent. Now, see, I'm discovering, for instance, that from this range here, he's not getting me with the Demon Flips, for instance. So I say, and so he does. So another option I have is, okay, well perhaps I can air-to-air that. There I tried to punish it again. Probably take 1 or 2 turns for me to convince myself perfectly to do that. And I have to get focused on all of the angles and such as well. Now, obviously this does end up with me having a decent amount of dead time, which is more against Akumabot in my experience than it has been against some other bots that I've fought. So I might want to adjust my approach in certain ways. And my lovely Vine here will be sharing with you her rather different approach to Akumabot in just a few minutes as well.
So, part of the other thing that we needed to build in this bot, after examining quite a few different Akumas and fighting quite a bit, is that his Demon Flips and his general air pressure tend to be one of the more tricky aspects of fighting an Akuma, and honestly, people loved a Demon Flip online. So, in keeping with the point of these bots to create an experience that matches close to what you're going to face online, we had to give him a few ways to mix up his Demon Flips, because he can do quite a few different things out of them, and each Demon Flip itself has different ranges and timings, which can end up taking quite a bit of the space for programming the bot itself.
And so I learned Heavy Punch alone doesn't do it either.
So it also changes in V-Trigger as well, especially what he can chain out of it. Like that. I mean, that's not Demon Flip, obviously, but there's just different setups he gets while in V-Trigger. So that's also one of the requirements for having this bot. So if you tinker around with it a little bit, make sure to not get rid of the V-Trigger, make sure to hide it in there somewhere. And for those of you just joining us, we're going over how to approach setting up a bot in Street Fighter V and the basics of how we approach getting training out of it and how we input it and the reasons why it's built that way. That sort of stuff. So, I think Kanzuki Dynasty is getting a little done.
What you'd like to say is that she wants her turn next, and it might perhaps be a little boring for you to just watch me, well, flail a bit and improve a bit, but
Right.
building my muscle memory and figuring out my options at various ranges against Akuma. So what we're going to do now is we are going to switch over to Armika and have just fine here give you her somewhat different and more calculated approach. But first, I'm not dead yet, and I intend to do something about that. And Akuma intends to do something about that.
Anyway,
So let's continue. Off to character select with us.
for right now, we don't technically have a scoring system yet. Part of what we're going to do this stream is we're going to, after I've fought it a little bit, talk amongst each other to figure out some sort of rough draft of the minigame and rules we set up. And to give you a little insight as to how we approach that. So, right now, there's no rules. I'm just going to go through what I do when I first get my hands on a new bot.
And so we don't forget,
Aha.
our respective control schemes are a little bit different. Have at it.
Okay, so the first thing I do is sort of what we did in the beginning. I go over each move, and I just see how I interact with it. This is for a few reasons. For one thing, I don't actually have that much matchup knowledge on certain characters. I have a lot more on Akuma, but even still, I like consolidating that knowledge before I actually go in. Because, I mean, the bot itself is a little bit different from... Oh, okay. Is a little bit different from the fullness of a character. But even online, people don't really use the character to their fullest advantage until they get about, like, gold rank or so. And by that I mean, like, options for the character and the sort of generally accepted bread and butter stuff. A lot of online people in the bronze range generally don't use all the character's options. Or they can, but they get really focused on one set of things.
By the time you start to get above gold and such, you're going to be facing people who have had a lot of time to practice. They probably know a bunch of different setups and situations for their character. They're relatively familiar with how they interact with most other characters to some degree. Not necessarily something you're going to be seeing in the early rounds. Even if you have one or two setups, or you have a particular trick or two that you're going to be doing, and people just might not be ready for that. That's a relatively large number of bronze and perhaps low silver players.
So what I'm doing here is I'm checking every single button I have that is reasonable for the range that this stupid heavy kick is at. And one of the things I first figured out when I was playing around with them a little bit was it beats drop kick. And for our Mika, Akuma's already a problem when it comes to using her drop kick. About as much as Ryu. A little less than... and Kin is a little less than Ryu and Akuma. Because Light Shoryu is just such a pain in the ass if you're trying to approach them aerially without actually doing something. Bison has the same problem. So the fact that there's another move that he can throw out that I can't really always beat if it's timed well. I want to actually show... See? That sort of stuff. If his is stuck out and mine is stuck out, I'm gonna lose. And it's a crush counter too, so... I probably would have ended up taking a lot of damage if it was a real person. So, basically this one gives me a little trouble. But... I'm not going to spend the whole time with this that I normally would. But basically this one doesn't give me too much trouble. And the thing that I learned was I can't really approach as much with drop kick with it. So I think the point of this specific action was, one, it alters when combined with other things what the demon flip comes out as. So we wanted a few normal stuff in there. It has the hidden throw tech. And honestly, a lot of Akuma's buttons are surprisingly safe because of how much it pushes you out. So we needed something that was both defensive. As you can see, we have a lot of down back stuff there, but also just generally pushed us out, because a lot of online Akumas like pushing buttons, and when they do, you basically can't do anything. But again, this one is a little limited. But if you try to get in on him with your usual pressure buttons, because he's blocking so much, it's not reliable. So you have to think about it a bit. Now, anybody who's fought Akuma in any game, let alone Street Fighter V, knows that his damn air fireballs are a pain in the ass. And your timing on approaching him in the air really depends if he's going to go for the dive kick or the fireball. So we had to hide in air fireballs, and we had to have some zoning in here as well. But the nice thing is, see, he's going for a lot of the air stuff because I haven't punished him. So he'll just keep doing that and making your day pretty miserable if you don't disturb him somehow. So when this combines with other moves, it'll lead into you blocking air fireball and then him hitting you. And that creates pressure that is very similar to what you get online. But if you do knock him out of this, he'll switch to doing fireballs and zoning you. And we made both of these possible to be EX, so that way they'd be safe, and it would create a variation of his fireball game without actually needing to input every single version of his fireballs. So that's sort of a sneaky way we improve on that sort of thing. So I don't think I'll get much out of that one without combining it with others. So on to the next. So this one we're going to be changing later on when we switch streams. But the gist of this one is it's meant to hide the V trigger. It's meant to have the Shoryu. It's meant to have the red fireball, which a lot of people use online. And it's meant to do that, because that's one of the most common things you'll see be meter-wise when he activates V trigger. So the thing we're going to be changing later on is we decided after playing him for a little bit that his red fireball probably needs to happen more often, because a lot more people in the bronze level will zone with him. And his red fireball also is generally just harder to deal with because it's safe and armor won't work on it. So my standard way of dealing with people who like zoning in the corner is I'll have my microphone on. Or for Bison, I'll use his parry and just absorb it. But that's not really an option for Akuma's red fireball. You have to either block it or jump. And I mean, while Fireball game is weaker in Street Fighter V, the concept is still fairly the same. Even higher level people still mess up on fireballs, and even in this game. Just jumping over them and missing the timing of it. It happens. It happens in tournaments even. So it's no surprise to anybody that at the lower levels it's probably one of the more popular things to do with Akuma. So after I go over all 5 of these, and as you can see, we have another EX version of the Demon Flip entered in. So that way we get even more variation for that.
In addition to the variation, we'll also simply get more Demon Flip. which can be useful because it's one of the major problems that many of us in our group are having with him in methods.
And that's the other thing. It just generally tends to wreck you when you do try to counter his jumping by jumping at him. And that's totally safe on block, too.
Yep, it's plus.
So... but I can trade. So fuck you.
Shouldn't.
No, it does. So the next thing I do after I go over all of these moves is I'll just turn on two that sound like they fit together. Either in the move that they use is the same, or in that the concept the entry is going for example, anti-airing with the Shoryu and the Demon Flip. That way they can build on each other and I can check for interactions. Because part of the reason why bots actually work as a concept is not only are you getting these different moves coming in after each other, not only are you having moves in the same entry slot coming out in different situations, but those situations combine with each other such that you get completely different behavior sets, not just a couple of moves. It's sort of an emergent thing, but it's why they can mimic an online play. And part of the way to learning from bots is because of all those different behavior sets, you're learning to look for the behaviors that we have figured out as a group are standard in the bronze level territory.
Or just that we need to practice with.
Or that we need to practice with, yeah. But we're looking for the behaviors, we're looking for patterns, and training the pattern recognition is extremely important in a game like Street Fighter. It's what makes you a pro or not, honestly. If you can't figure out a pattern to your opponent, they become unreadable. And if they become unreadable, they become unreactable. You can't react to them at all. Because there's just so many ways you can mix things up. There's too much probability space. So, this is intended to help train you pattern recognition at a very, very basic level in a very complex game. But the other thing it helps you with is that in order to beat the bot with whatever rule set we end up coming with, or whatever you end up coming with, in order to beat them, you need to figure out what your game plan is, not just to counter what the bot does, not just to counter the behaviors there are, but to control what kind of behaviors come out in the bot, so that way you can survive longer. And that is another reason why bots actually work out. They don't always do the same thing every time, depending how you punish them. But in punishing them, you change its behavior. So, I mean, this bot does a lot of different things just with these two commands turned on. So, the reason why I do this, and what I think is a little more useful if you're trying to focus on the pattern recognition part of training is I go through these individually to see what behaviors happen when I combine just two. That way I'm not confusing myself with a whole bunch of extra data noise. And I can note the pieces of the puzzle. So we have a demon flippin' 5, we have a demon flippin' 1. So I'm gonna turn those on. And I was so used to dealing with the fireball pressure to begin with. Now I'm easily getting demon flipped because I'm not focused on my anti-air. It's dealable with, but if you're in the wrong mind state, you can't deal with anything. So that's why training adaptability is important, and that's why this sort of works. Obviously, at higher levels, there's a different meta to things, so the bots would need like your own input to tweaking it a bit. But I think you'll find that even in the future, like even towards maybe like gold, it doesn't take that many adjustments to make it a little more hard and for you to use it as a training tool. But again, this is basically built for bronze level people. And yes, I do that sometimes just to feel better. So I'm not going to bore you too long here going through each one individually. I'm just going to turn them all on now, because I have faced this bot sometimes. And since I know I have trouble with V reversal, I'm just going to be looking for testing out that in all the different situations. The reason why V reversal is a good way to check out this sort of thing, and why the bot having all 5 turned on is useful, is because a V reversal isn't always a safe thing to do. But whatever button the bot pushes next really depends on how good of an idea it was or not. Like, if it mashes throw or whatever at the moment that I V-reversaled it and it blocked, which we have a slot in here that does do blocking and throwing, well, I might have a bad day. So I can just learn what patterns happen that prevent me from doing my V-reversal. So that way later on, when I'm under pressure, I don't go V-reversaling under maybe a Kuma's dive kick, for example. So there was another reason why I ended up turning on all of my meter, and how I differ from my colleague. I like having all my meter on because I do this sort of button check style thing before I actually get serious with a bot. And for a lot of the characters I play, the properties of my move are significantly changed in terms of how I use the move. For Jury, it's a little bit less. For Bison, the startup is quicker, so I can use it in more situations, but generally it's the same. But for Armika, I specifically have Wingless, which has a really fast startup and a totally different jump arc. And EX Peach, which gives me some armor. So I need to figure out what sort of behaviors in the bot prevent me from using EX Peach. And EX Peach is not safe in the slightest. So it's important to know when I can get blocked out of something too. So, now that Kanzuki and I have had a chance at the bot and have watched each other play, let's discuss possible goals. So we thought of a goal before we went into this, just to have some sort of rough draft.
And for the record, by goals, we're referring to the point system.
Right.
The scoring you may have seen on other bots. What things you need to try to do or handle, and what things the opponent perhaps even sometimes gets points for themselves. In our standard bot arrangement, obviously, the goal is to get 10 points before your opponent either gets 10 points, if they get points at all, or manages to kill you. Something that just fine will not turn back on. Since you've been cheating.
I want to call it cheating.
Oh, I would. I'll take care of that part for you.
I would call it playing with style.
Aha. Very stylish. In any case, now that she's no longer immortal, she's going to have to actually try. But the goal is for her to try to get 10 points before she dies. So we're going to have to define what points are.
Do you remember what we said our beginning? No, you don't.
Not directly, other than dealing with Demon Flip.
Alright.
Which I remembered because it aligned with my other goals and the fact that Demon Flip is a horrible pain in the ass.
Alright, well let's give a point for punishing Demon Flip. And let's also give a point for punishing his fireballs correctly.
Alright.
Because part of my issue against Shadows is they get off a lot of free damage off me just because I don't pressure them after they do a fireball. So they're more than happy to do fireball for me to give me more practice.
In any case, I want to suggest actually a couple of things. I like the fireball points, and you can keep that one. But I'm going to revise the Demon Flip one a little bit.
Okay.
When I was testing this bot with Ibuki, I realized that various of her moves, the correct way to handle Demon Flip is not to counter it at all. In fact, the correct way to handle Demon Flip is to use any of her various normals that are spectacular for evading it. I can be dead on, totally guaranteed to be hit by Demon Flip, and perhaps hit Hard Punch, and it will go right over behind you. And similar things like that. So for the Demon Flip score point, I would say punishing a Demon Flip, anti-airing generally, because Demon Flip won't be the only thing he does, and since you're focused on Demon Flip, you're probably going to screw up your other anti-airs, or vice versa. So I give a point for each of those things, but with the punishing Demon Flip, I would also add the option of evading a Demon Flip that was otherwise pretty much guaranteed to hit you. Since obviously you don't want to get points if you just stand at completely the wrong range. But I think evading is a good thing to start with. And as you level up, if you get better at the bot, and depending on your character, you might get rid of that and say, sure, I can evade it all the time. I'm going to push myself to evade and then punish. Or any similar such things. So, we have a couple of different parameters now. Fireball punish, anti-air, and dodge or punish demon flip. Let's see if just fine here can make it to 10. If you'd hit reset. It's the button dip.
And I specifically gave myself refilling the trigger meter because, as I said, lately one of my things I've been practicing has been my V reversal. So, and honestly just when to use my V trigger in general. I tend to forget it's there, not because I don't meter watch. I actually worked really hard on getting my meter watch down. So I know I have it there, but it doesn't register as, oh, I can do something with this now. So, while I will not suggest it for everybody, if you're having a lot of V reversal problems, maybe second guess our suggestion for what V meter, if it should be turned off or on.
And I think, for the moment, I'm going to start giving Akuma points each time he does his ground pound and then hits you with the jab that follows it. So, try not to try and punish the plus.
Punish the what?
If you try to punish the ground pound into jab, and you get hit by that jab, I'm going to give you a point. You just need to learn not to punish there. Because sure, with the bot it's just a jab. Opponent? Who knows?
If you get hit with the jab?
If the jab counter hits you, so if you tried to punish it, the jab counter hits you, he gets a point.
Okay, fair enough.
So don't get jabbed. So now you have to beat him to 10 without dying. The achievement with 3 different point conditions is going to be no short order for someone who hasn't messed with the bot much, and isn't already very comfortable fighting humans.
Yeah, part of the reason why we ended up making this bot fairly early on is, one, there are so many online Akumas. It's ridiculous. So, obviously, quantity became a concern. And if you're leveling up in bronze, while obviously you need matchup knowledge against a lot of different people, specializing in the ones that get played the most isn't necessarily a horrible tactic. Because, let's be honest, if you fight a whole bunch of Akuma, if you fight nothing but Akuma at bronze, or Akuma, Ryu, Ken, and Colleen, I think it is, you're gonna end up not really learning much beyond those characters when you're playing online.
The simple fact of the matter is, if all you find in bronze are Colleen and Shotos, well, get out of bronze.
Right.
You might find someone else.
So, focusing on them will hopefully give you a little bit of an advantage in terms of getting out of bronze and into maybe even... there's some variety in Super and Ultra Bronze. Not a lot, but a lot more than Bronze and Rookie. So, if we can get you out of there, you'll at least have a little better of a balanced diet, so to speak. So that was one reason why we did Akuma so early. But the other is, Akuma, for me, represents everything I have trouble with in this game. I suck at dealing with air game. And this is also partially a problem with Vega, but at least Vega doesn't have a freaking Dragon Punch that is basically impossible for Mika to pressure against once the patch comes back up. I mean, it's not like a totally unachievable thing, but it certainly makes it a lot more 50-50 and a lot more risky. But with Vega, I can just bully him all day. So, Akuma forces me to behave, and forces me to actually play the game in terms of dealing with an opponent with a defensive option on Wake Up. But he has just so... I can't focus on just anti-airing him either, because unlike everyone else, I know you haven't really seen it in the stream, but I can't really use Wingless Airplane as an anti-air against him. And that has mainly been my go-to for a decent chunk of this. I can do that, but Headbutt trades with a lot of things, as you just saw. So it's not necessarily the best anti-air option. And her Lady Nika, as you just saw there, I tried doing Lady Nika, but I got thrown. So...
4 points.
Thanks. One of the things I suck with is I just suck at keeping track of my points, which sort of defeats the purpose of this, but...
At the same time, as long as you're developing a skill, it's fine. One thing that I do is I don't bother keeping track of the points until I'm reasonably confident in what's going on and think that I'm actually going to have a chance at getting ahead.
And that's sort of what you saw me doing in the beginning too, when I was explaining how I go over each move. That's just me gearing myself mentally to feel comfortable with the bot enough to essentially go into the minigame aspect. So... already here, I can see that we definitely need to change probably 2, I think. I think it's a little delayed, and it gives me too much space to pressure him. But we'll go over that later.
The Akumabot is something we've created in just the last couple of days, and are still working on refining.
Conceptually, it's done. Conceptually, we know that we need a lot of Demon Flip, we need Red Fireball game, we need the Air Fireball mix-up, and we need his forward Heavy Punch. I mean, that's already a fairly good step up from what I would call from scratch. So... I think another useful skill this teaches you, though, is you can't beat a bot on autopilot. At least not a new bot. Because the rule system itself forces you to feel responsibility in a way for messing something up or doing an optimal action.
3 points to his 2.
Well, like I said, I'm autopiloting because I'm discussing things, and that's kind of how it came up. And I really need to learn that I can just not punish his stupid demon flip grab with my anti-air buttons. So
So now, having gone through this a little bit, what do you think of the point system? Do you see anything that immediately needs to be adjusted for you?
no, not so far. I think because I think we did program in him being able to do his super, right?
I have no idea.
I'm fairly sure I've had him do super against me.
Okay.
So I would probably give him a point for that.
Honestly, if he's doing his super, he doesn't need points. He's going to take it away.
Well, if I block.
He doesn't do it frequently enough that I figure it matters, and it's an extra thing to keep track of.
I suppose.
After all, he hasn't done it yet today.
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with our recording for two.
It might also be the fact that he hasn't had meter.
Oh.
So remember, he does a lot of EX, and we
Oh,
don't
right.
give him the full bar.
I forgot about that.
So we could turn that on.
So I'm gonna focus on this a little more intensely.
Oh, I have missed it that many times. Oh. Well then.
This goes to show how well we are paying attention. So I'm gonna focus on doing this. And Kanzuki can discuss what she observes. I'm gonna restart.
0 points. Alright then. You are learning to back off after that. The ground pound into jab, you're learning to back off a bit. But I warn you that if it was not a jab, but instead perhaps a light immediate Shoryuken, you would still get nailed. So you should make sure you're blocking as well.
So I got points for anti-airing, punishing demon flip,
Yes.
and throwing him out of fireball or something.
Proper fireball punishes. Punishing or properly evading a demon flip. And anti-airs. No points for your Shoryuken punishes, no matter how many of them you do.
Yeah, but I
On
have
the other
a...
hand, muscle memory and habit are themselves.
Well, it's actually that I found myself choking on my Dragon Punch punishes lately. I don't know why,
Okay.
but yeah.
So yes, continue doing that if you like, I suppose, but it is a little too easy to give points for. So.
Well, I mean, I do try to, like, include parts of my game. Just to give my mind a little more to multitask with. I don't do this at first, though, so I'm just misbehaving.
And as Villian is pointing out in our stream chat here, we do have a Ryu bot, or other bots that are Ken as well, that are good for Shoryuken punishes. Primarily Ken, I believe. Yes, I think I would agree with that. I'm not seeing very much Red Fireball, and Shoryukens, well, we're sort of just used to. And to be quite honest, I don't really get hit by them much. Although Mika does a little bit. Anyway, the other thought I had, from my observations of Akuma, but I don't know if it's something we can even fix, is that when he does his EX Demon Flip, it all ends up going over my head, and apparently Mika's too a little bit. So I wonder if there's... No, even if he did have multiple versions, we're already using the lightest. Okay. Well, in terms of judging Demon Flip reactions, if you punish it, it's rather straightforward and obvious, right? So you can give yourself a point for that. Especially since you'll know if you got the punish right, generally, or if you did something completely wonky. You just got lucky. And you can give yourself a little bit of benefit of the doubt. As for evasion, when I was playing Ibuki, I found that it was very fluid, and so I don't think it's necessarily a big problem. Because Demon Flip goes up, and then it comes down in a relatively predictable range. And you can see that it is the throw option or such. And I hit a button and it works, really. It doesn't do anything for what purpose? To give an empty Demon Flip option or something else? Okay. That would be an option, although I'm not necessarily sure. Okay.
Okay.
The problem with that, of course, is then if he's ever blocking, I'm going to absolutely know and be ready for the forward heavy punch. I'm not sure what we can do about that, however. And I don't know all of his options precisely in terms of what they're setting up for in the beginnings, but... On the other hand, giving him the Demon Flip option is useful, especially given what we have trouble with. And the fact that I can block one thing... Now that might be useful. Yeah.
Oh man.
Sounds good to me. So we can do that when we're going about tweaking the bot. Which, if I understand correctly, is our next stream segment after we do wait for Texas Showdown pools to end and have satisfied ourselves with this. So when we finish this segment, we're going to take a break for a little while and come back after Texas pools end. And to make sure you're ready when we come back, you can leave your Twitch channel open. You can follow us to get a push notification on your phone if you turn that on. Or you can watch our Twitter for our next announcements. Twitch.tv/2mk, obviously, and Twitter.com/2_mk_FGC. Just putting FGC on the one. Well, _FGC, as the case may be. And of course, if you forget, all of these are available at our site, 2-mk.org. I know. I need some practice before I get to say gems level.
You could have waited till I did a 2 medium kick. I mean, like, that's just basics there, man.
What can I say? I'm not that young.
Figuring out the difference between his Demon Flip grab, his jumping, and his fireball, his air fireball, is so hard. Because I can't really punish all of those with wingless airplane. So I really need to learn to tell which one's going to happen.
Well, now that we've established our point system, and you've had it for a little while, if you don't have any particular thoughts for how we should modify that bot, I'm going to switch to takeover again, and we'll see how I do with the points. Or if I see anything else obvious that I would like adjusted. So, you've got as long as you can last.
Alright, fair enough. Did that count as an
And
evade?
after that, we'll end our stream and give you all a break to watch the tail end of the Texas Showdown pools. And then make your way back here for our next segment. Nice escape, but that was a lot of meter.
One of the other things that I do use the bots to figure out is when I have an opportunity for building meter. Armika has her light peach. Jury doesn't really build meter, she charges her fireball kicks. And Bison has Nightmare Inferno. So,
And actually this time, I'm going to go with Ibuki. In part to show you what I mean, and in part because why not? Besides, having the evasion option will give us perhaps a little better idea of how difficult that is to factor in a point system. And perhaps whether I shouldn't be getting those points at all, and should instead be aiming to evade, and then punish. Which is something I'm certainly considering, and was wondering about. But we'll see how that goes. And then after just a little bit of this, we can end stream and let you all take a break before we go about tweaking and finalizing the Akumabot itself. I, on the other hand, could probably get along with cheating on the V-gauge. I also need to work on my V-reversals. I'm going to put him back onto a normal V-gauge and maybe earn that himself. And with that, let's begin. Okay. And there we go. I forgot the control switch. I find, in my case at least, that it helps me to count aloud, just because it makes it that much easier to keep track of my points while I'm paying attention to it.
I do the same when I exercise. Otherwise, I'll just keep doing sit-ups forever. Which is not good for your abdomen.
Not really. Oh, I had to do that. I suppose you consider many of my various four jump options to be evading the 5 Demon Flip. Which, I really shouldn't be getting points for things like neutral jumping out of the way, I don't think.
No, I think it should either be specifically like dash under punish or something like that.
Okay. Well, that's not even what I was intending to begin with.
No, or some
It was
normal
the
move
fact
that
that-
moves you over.
Right.
But getting the punish after the demon flip, I think it would make it easier in terms of keeping track of a point system that makes sense.
But I'm not necessarily going to get a point on, which is perhaps a reason that I should not consider this to be valid for score, because obviously it would be better if I do get points off of it. But for instance, and we'll have to see if he does come in on me. I'm pressing crouching because I'm waiting for him to punch. That button completely dodged it, although he was definitely going to hit me right off.
That's really character specific.
It is, but I doubt I'm the only character that has it. And not that, but something vaguely similar. And that's the other thing you should definitely consider and note. Your character might have something that's interesting for you to learn that may not matter too much for other people. And maybe you want to adapt the point scale for something you like to do, your character likes to do, or just how things work. And that's really totally okay. Getting demon flipped on the other hand, less okay. Ultimately, the purpose of a bot is to help you out and get you where you need to be. So whatever rules that work for you, good. It is of course nice to have a somewhat universal starting point, which is what we're aiming for with our things about punishing demon flips, anti-airing his mix-ups, and other such things.
These keys. We're currently going over refining a training tool right now. Basically, we have created a bot that has a whole bunch of different inputs inside different inputs. So that way, whenever we like punish something or block something, it'll slightly change. So that's what we're currently up to. If you have any requests for knowing that sort of thing, or having us give you an explanation, or showing you something in the bot, we're more than happy to help. We are about to change the stream to inputting the bot, and we could probably show you how we build that a little bit since you missed the beginning of our stream.
There isn't a player 2. Actually, what you're watching now is not player controlled, but playback recording. We have defined 5 different recordings that feed into each other and have hidden inputs in other moves, so that if you punish him, different things will come out that simulate a, well, diverse and realistic bot, which still has consistent patterns and focuses. And so, we use these. There are several of them, including a few that we have punished on our website, 2-mk.org, to help us train specific things, such as proper punishes under pressure, dealing with anti-airs and cross-ups, this one, the Akumabot, when we finished it, and refined it a little bit, which we'll be working on our next stream segment here, in not too long, but we're going to take a brief break. We will publish that as well. So if you want to take a look at our website, 2-mk.org, or look through our stream archives, you can see more of this sort of thing. And pick up the bots for your own use as well.
Yeah, and once we switch over, we can give a brief overview of stuff we went over in the last stream for you if you're interested.
what we were just discussing, in case you've only recently joined us, is as part of using these bots, we set up a scoring system for you. Let me give myself a little time. Oops, maybe not. Anyway, and so we were just discussing, we give the Akuma auto-recover life. So it can keep doing things, and we have to keep learning how to deal with them. And, well, teaching ourselves to deal with them while we're being mixed up or having to deal with and keep our track of other things as well. We set our health gauge to normal, so that the bot can defeat us. And then, so we can measure our improvement and to give us something to focus on, we give ourselves a points system. My goal, we were just working out the point system for the Akumabot that we're in progress of building now. My goal is to punish demon flips, properly punish fireballs, something that our Mika player, just fine, came up with that she wanted to have for her own stuff. And then anti-airing, simply because it will end up getting mixed up with demon flips. And so if you properly anti-air, it will give you one more thing to focus on to make sure you're not just looking for the demon flip and have to think and practice and be ready all that much more. So every time I do one of those things, I get 1 point. Also, Akuma does this, and if I let him, that jab will punish me, because that move is plus on block, even though it doesn't look like it. So we give Akuma 1 point every time he lands that jab after the ground pound. And so, my goal is to get to 10 points before either he gets 10 points, or I die. Simple as that.
So it's basically programming your own Akuma minigame.
Which gives you a challenge and a reasonably fun way to actually go about grinding on some things that you needed to deal with anyway. But it might be better than just setting the bot to constantly demon flip you and bore yourself to death trying to deal with it.
Alrighty.
Not the least of which, because then, from that point, you'll end up with a more broad set of stuff going on and have to think about more things, just like you will in a real match.
So I think we're gonna get ready here to take our break before we go to the next segment in a few moments. Probably should only be a couple minutes.
So if you want to stick around for maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes after the stream ends, you should see another stream, and we'll be right back. Since while I was doing my own testing to see if I liked the points conditions, I don't think anything needs changing, and for the moment, I'll leave off the evasion point. So the point system we have is properly punishing fireballs, anti-airing, and punishing demon flip. So now, we're off to take our break and give Akuma some time to cool down. When we come back in a little bit, we will be going through refining the bot, changing some recordings, tweaking it, and talking about what we need to do. Then eventually we'll publish it on our website, and you can view it there. So for now, this is Kansuki Dinosaur.
And just fine.
Signing off. Back in a bit.